Hello everybody, my name is Christian Swenson. I do videos here on YouTube about autism, autistic consciousness, and life on the autism spectrum. Today I'd like to do a video about bodies, about your body, about my body, and specifically ask you the question, where are you in your body? I want you to think about that. Where are you? I know I said in a video earlier that autistic people don't have a self. I think what I meant by that, though, is something like what would be our self we don't realize is the same thing as other people's selves. And so in that sense, it's either all self, we're completely absorbed in what we are, or all other, completely absorbed in what you are, but we can't bring them together. And I talked about that in that video. It's a kind of a paradoxical concept. Don't try to pin me down to labels. But anyway, if you were to talk about yourself or your center of activity, like where you act from, where would you say it is? Where is your center? I bet a number of you, many of you, maybe even most of you would say, about right here. Halfway between your eyes and halfway between your ears and a little bit behind the eyes, behind your forehead, where your brain is. We've been told we're our brains. We are an intellectual culture, and this is actually very common in the West. It actually wouldn't be very common in older cultures and maybe indigenous cultures. You ask a lot of them, and they would say or would have said, "I'm actually right here, in my heart." And of course, that's that makes sense. And you can actually, what you can do is you can learn to shift your center of attention from here to here. I mentioned the book Plant Intelligence in the Imaginal Realm. One of the things that book is about shifting your center of being from here to here. He gives a very interesting exercise. He said, visualize a nice, comfortable, safe, wonderful place from your childhood. Visualize it. Try to feel the feelings, smell the smells, hear the sounds, make it all sensory in your imagination, and really relax and get calm and integrate yourself with the place. And he says if you do that, and if you close your eyes and imagine that and reach out to where the image is, it's most often going to be like right here, about your heart level. But if you think about bills, if you think about homework, if you think about all the tasks and duties and responsibilities you have, and you got to get these done, and you got to do that, and you reach out to where the image is, it's probably going to be about right here. And I've actually seen that work. I've done it with students before. But it's the question: are we here or are we here? Are we pulling our bodies from our heads, or are we centering our bodies and piloting our bodies from our heart? I think that's a crucial point. And I think maybe one thing, and you know how I just said I think that's that's a mistake I make a lot, because it implies that the thinking thing's in charge. Maybe I should experiment more with saying I feel this is the case, or I imagine this is the case. But anyway, right? I imagine or I feel that if we were to shift our attention from here to here, I think a lot might actually change for the better. Because what often happens is that I try to pull my body out of the chair to switch activities from my head. And that causes a lot of muscle tension and a lot of feeling like, oh, I got to pull my body from this thing that doesn't know how to operate my body. And it's a tough thing. And I told this to my wife, and she's like, well, you shouldn't do it from that way. She's really intuitive. She says you should pull yourself from your heart, from your chest. And I think that's a cool idea. And I actually haven't tried that very much, but the few times I have tried it, it's actually really effective. And this is something I'm still working on. Don't get me wrong. I still am, from the head a lot. But I wanted to maybe explore another possibility, because the idea of pulling the body, the idea of piloting the body from a specific place, maybe even if it's from the heart, is a bit of a problem, because, well, let's say it relies on a visual logic. Now, what do I mean by that, a visual logic? Well, vision is a unique sense because it, more than any of the other senses, forgets that it's there. It forgets about the eyes. Vision, done by the eyes, forgets about the eyes, because you don't see the eyes when you see, unless you look into a mirror. It's not true when you touch something. When you touch something, oh, my finger's right there. You don't just see it, but you feel it. To feel something is to feel yourself, but to see something isn't to see yourself. And so it makes me wonder is that to the extent we, like Westerners, rely on vision as our primary sense, we will feel ourself as something visual, like an eye. And because of that, we will fall into the same traps that vision does. Not only forgetting that you're there, but also the errors of perspective. I look over there, and it's like I see the bird cage, and then I see the fridge somehow behind the bird cage, and the bird cage and the fridge are in the same place, and there are some parts of the fridge I can't see because of the bird cage. Well, that's perspective, right? And it makes me wonder is if I feel like myself was up here, it's like maybe certain parts of the body kind of are blended or blurred together in the same way that the bird cage and the fridge are blended and blurred together. Now that's an abstract concept, but let me make it a little bit more concrete. Oftentimes I tend to feel like my hand and maybe my other hand, it's like I can't tell them apart sometimes if I'm not paying attention, if I'm not moving them. It's almost like certain parts of my body kind of just blend and bleed together if I'm sitting. It's a hard thing to explain, but maybe you know what I'm talking about. And I had the thought that maybe the reason that's the case, and I had this intuition, is the same reason that when you're looking at something from a distance, things can look closer together than they are. And so maybe because of that visual logic, it's almost like I'm so much above myself that different things look closer together than they are. That's a hard thing to explain, and maybe I'm explaining it poorly. But it got me thinking, what if myself wasn't based on vision at all? What if it wasn't, oh, I see my body? What if it's more, I feel my body? It's a touch metaphor. I feel things. And what if I feel it from the inside? What if myself were a touching self and not a seeing self? What if myself were something that was tactile, something that was kinesthetic, something that was, physical? What if myself didn't just exist from a single point looking out, but existed in many, many, many points? See, that's the question. What if the self doesn't need to have a center? What if it was decentered? What if the self was just as much in my little finger as in my right temple? What if the self was distributed in the whole body? I was reading a book recently by a woman named Marion Milner. I forget what it's called. A Life of One's Own is what it's called. You should look it up. It's this book where she explores, what if I tried to figure out what made me happy instead of trying to do what other people say would make me happy? And she does this huge, amazing psychological exploration of herself. One thing she discovers is she can get to a point by shifting her center of self, interestingly, where it feels like she's not just one point in her body, but she's the whole thing. She is the whole body. And it's trying to think, this is what I tried to do in the meditation I put out recently. What if you are your little finger? You are your little finger. You don't just have a little finger. That's you, among other things. This is also you. And this, that's all you. What if it's all you? And I think this is I tend to have fallen into the assumption that the self has to be a pinprick, a point. But no, it's not. What if the self is the entire damn body? What if the self is all of it? And moreover, what if the self is continuous with the outside? What if what's in me, when I'm talking to you, is in you as well? What if the relationship I have to you is the same relationship my little finger has to my ring finger? And that's something to think about. What if I'm part of a bigger body that includes you? And something feels itself in me in the same way that I feel myself in my little finger. That's a question. Why couldn't that be the case? And so I guess these are some of my thoughts. Is what if it were possible? And what if it would solve a lot of problems to shift our sense of self from a single point up here to maybe the heart, or maybe even to the whole damn body? Forgive my French. So I'm Christian Swenson. I do videos here ideally every Tuesday and Saturday. I'll probably be back next Tuesday. and I'll see you or feel you, touch you in the most appropriate sense when I do. Take care.